All right, I welcome you to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. Today, we turn our attention to Rivers State, where 6 months of extraordinary federal intervention is coming to an end. As this bold move restored order or shaking the foundation of democracy is a question I'm asking. As the federal intervention restored order or undermined democracy norms, what does this experiment with a sole administrator mean for Rivers State when it comes to violating politics and all of that? Again, I welcome you to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, your executive producer. My name is Kike Lomo Atanda-Owo Abati. I think it's important for us to hear what On This Day initial segment has for us. When I return, I give my 2 cents on it. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. Right, many thanks for staying with me. My takeaway from On This Day history segment just shows that history remains a reminder that democracy was won through sacrifice, not handed down. In modern times, as Nigerians, confront electoral violence and governance gaps, the legacy of NADECO, challenges us to defend, democracy with the same courage and vigilance, because freedoms once fought for can easily be rooted if citizens become complicit. And I think that's my takeaway from On This Day history segment today. On this note, it's important for us to get a message from my sponsors. When I return, we dive straight to the topic at hand. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. On March 18th this year, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State. He suspended the governor, the deputy, and the state assembly, citing escalating insecurity, pipeline vandalism, and deep political division between Governor Fubara and his predecessor, now Minister Wike, a sole administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibok-Ete was appointed to steer the state for 6 months. In that time, he reconstituted the state electoral body, conducted local government election, and claimed to have delivered on this mandate. But critics, insist that the intervention undermined democratic norms and overstepped constitutional boundaries. As the 6 months expires, we ask, or the citizens or the people of Rivers State are asking, was Rivers State stabilized or was Rivers State silenced? What are the legal and political consequences is the question I'm asking. What lessons does this hold for federal-state relations in Nigeria? But before we delve into Real Talk with Kike today, I think it's important for me to play my guest profile. And when I return, I will be speaking with him directly. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. Let me quickly use this opportunity to usher in my guest, Mr. Solomon Lenu. Many thanks for creating time to do this with me. How are you doing today? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me as well.
I can hear you loud and clear because I know I saw your message earlier saying that you couldn't hear me. We went on a break at the time. But putting that aside, let's dive straight to the issue at hand, because the Nigerian Bar Association and numerous constitutional lawyers have described the emergency declaration as unconstitutional rather, arguing that Section 305 doesn't permit suspending elected officials, given that Rivers wasn't experiencing insurgency like northern states. So why was this extreme measure justified, and does this create a dangerous precedent for future federal interventions against opposition states? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because there's so many issues out there. People are asking, is this truly peace that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu think that he has been able to achieve, or people are just tiptoeing in Rivers State? What's your take on this thus far?
Well, I think the fact of the matter, like they say in law, speaks for itself. The fact of this matter is right there in the open. It was actually, politically motivated. Everything that happened in Rivers State so far, was politically motivated, and declaring a state of emergency here, to the extent of even suspending the elected governor of Rivers State for 6 months, can be likened to a saying that you don't use a sledgehammer to kill a fly. That was exactly what the president did here. What we had here was a political disagreement or misunderstanding between two political gladiators from one political divide, and then the people of Rivers State was meant to summarily, pay the price, bear the brunt of that disagreement that could have also been solved, politically, and I have always maintained that the president actually didn't want to solve the problem here, because if he had wanted to solve the problem that we had here, there were numerous ways and ample opportunities, with which he would have solved the problem, owing to the fact that one party in the crisis was actually his own employee, as it were. But of course, solving the crisis in Rivers State was not, the question. The issue here was just to satisfy a particular, actor in the crisis. It was more or less like, saying thank you for what one party in the crisis had done for him. And so, whether Rivers people were dying, whether Rivers people were crying, no matter the feelings of Rivers people, was inconsequential in the action of the president. And I also want to agree with the people who had cited, the constitutional provisions and the constitutionality of the action here. I want to say they are correct because, of course, our constitution is written in plain text. If you look at Section 305 of the Constitution, where the president derived the power, to declare a state of emergency from, the Constitution didn't just stop at that. It actually provided, conditions that must be met, situations that must occur before that section of the Constitution must be evoked. Of course, we all know that that never happened. There were no reasons whatsoever why that state of emergency was declared. And if you also go further to look at Section 108 of the Constitution, where ways and means of removing an elected governor, can be carried out, or things that should happen before such such action will happen. If you look at Section 108 and Section 221 of the Constitution, none of those things, were actually met. None of those conditions were met. So, of course, those who say that what happened here was a political state capture are right, to say so. But of course, we have seen 99, and then, of course, 100 is no longer, an issue, because, of course, we are just 2 days shy away from the 6 months. And of course, on the 18th, Rivers people are expecting that abrasive action that was taken here, will be called off. And of course, we will now begin to find a way to repair the damages, that action has cost the people of Rivers State. We'll begin to see how, we'll pick ourselves up, and begin to rebuild. But one thing is very, very sacrosanct. We will not forget, how we got here. We will not forget the person under whose watch Rivers State was thrown into this debacle, that the pains from it will live with us, for the rest of our life. Of course, it will go down in history. Children unborn today will be born to remember that in the year 2025, on the 18th day of March, such an action was taken against Rivers people under the watch of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for no just cause. Because, of course, the PDP is not the only party in Rivers State. The PDP was not the only people, the PDP members were not the only people who voted, for the governor of Rivers State, in the March 2023 election that brought the governor to office. There were diverse interests, various political parties who came together, voted him, and their rights was infringed upon by the declaration of that state of emergency by virtue of the disagreement that was within the PDP political family. So it's unfortunate, but that is where we are. So right now, Rivers people we are not even interested in, going back that memory lane, because of course, it brings back a very painful, reality to us every time that this matter comes up. So what we are focused on right now is how we can rebuild our state. Of course, mistakes are meant to be made, but of course, what is even more important is the lessons, that, we learn from our mistakes, which is what I would want to, rather encourage, every Rivers men and women, to focus on right now, so that we can actually rebuild our state, because a lot of damage has been done. This whole political crisis we are having didn't just start today. Of course,
this particular episode has been on now for 2 years. Mr. Solomon, I understand how passionate you are with the challenges in you guys' hands in Rivers, or in our hands, because we are all together in this, regardless whether some people are living in Lagos. But with all that you have shared thus far, do you believe that the National Assembly's swift ratification reflects proper constitutional oversight or political compliance? Because with all that you have shared thus far, I'm just thinking aloud, the Admiral Ibok himself performed functions typically reserved for elected governments. Listening to you with all that you have shared thus far, I'm wondering, how do we move forward to dissolve this local governments, reconstructions when it comes to the RSIEC conducting elections, preparing budgets without legislative approval, all of this, I must ask, which I believe that these actions most concerned every one of you, including you, your organization. Do you believe that he exceeded the mandate of restoring order? Or you don't even believe that he even, I don't know. What's your take on this thus far? Because I know that quite a number of people in Rivers State are unhappy with the situation at hand.
Well, Kike, one thing that Nigerians must understand is the fact that, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The actions that had been taken thus far in Rivers State has created a precedent, that will be referenced, for a very long time, until such a time when our judicial system, mans up enough to stand up, against such arbitrary use, of power and the instrumentalities of state. Today, it is Rivers State. Tomorrow, it might be Kaduna. It might be Lagos State. It might be anywhere. And don't even forget that in life, evil, prevails when good men sit back and says nothing. And evil does not need promotion, to spread around just the way good deeds, lingers, and waiting for promotion. So the actions that have been taken here is something that a very long time from today will continue to be referenced, because of course, any leader who is heady enough can even return tomorrow and then say, oh, of course, it was done in Rivers State. Let me also replicate it because it happened in Rivers State and nothing was done. And talking about the National Assembly, I think without prejudice to the personalities and the people at the National Assembly, I can tell you that this is the worst National Assembly, that we have had, in the history, of this country as far as I can remember. Because of course, the National Assembly was supposed to, be, a mechanism for checks and balances, for the executive and even the judiciary and other tiers and arms of government. But today we have seen that they had become, an appendage, to the executive, doing whatever the executive desires, forgetting the fact that our forebears who created our constitution and the form of government that we are practicing today saw through the need, to have different tiers of government that will check each other. But today, of course, the National Assembly has collapsed, and that's the reason why they even, performed and carried out the charade that they carried out with regards to this state of emergency. Because if you had followed up, you discover that the president even suspended the governor even before the National Assembly ratified, that action, which is very, very undemocratic and uncalled for. To even make it worse, because that decision of the president was not very popular, and it was difficult for the National Assembly to get the required constitutional number to actually give it life. You saw that the National Assembly went against the House rule, the standing order of the House, which requires that a two-thirds majority votes, for such a declaration before it is, brought into law. They went against it and used voice vote, to the dismay of a lot of members of the House who were not in tandem, with that action, because they felt that the issue of Rivers State had not called for a state of emergency. So you see that we have a situation that is very, very appalling. We have a situation where people who are supposed to stand up and uphold, the Constitution had fallen flat, to the whims and caprices of strong men. And today, Nigerians, I think that if we want to, just pretend about the situation that is before us, well, we can move forward. When they call off the state of emergency, we can go further. But the truth remains that just calling off the state of emergency and then people pretend as if everything is over and we move forward is not going to do this country any good. Because the damages
I agree with you. I agree with you, Mr. Solomon. If you can hear me, I agree with you completely that it's not going to do us any good in this country. And of course, the injustice is everywhere. But putting that aside, because in one of your submission earlier, I felt like I needed to bring this conversation to fore regarding the August 30, when local elections, resulted in a clean sweep for Wike aligned candidates, amidst all these opposition boycotts and criticism Do you consider this election legitimate? And what evidence, in terms of the supporters or support that claims that the sole administrator appointment favored one political faction? And you see, the reason why I'm asking this question is because I want us to find a balance. Do you think that all the electoral outcomes affect one political dynamics when Governor Fubara returns? Because however you look at it, there are still some groups that will still be against or for him. How do you guys move forward in a more unified manner in terms of providing security for the country, or for the states rather?
On the issue of the local government election, of course, those were one of the crux, that was one of the crux of the whole disagreement, because, of course, it is believed that elections in Nigeria today, are not a reflection of the will of the people. So for you to be able to muscle your way through, you must have a strong grip, at the local level. So having control of the local government, chairman and structure was one of the bane, of the peace in Rivers State, between the minister, and the state governor. So of course, we saw a situation where even sections of the constitution of this country were breached, violated, just, to get through with the shenanigans that they wanted to carry out. Of course, the laws of Nigeria is clear. It is only an elected government, that can actually conduct a local government election. And then you want to ask the question, how does Rear Admiral Ibok-Ete, come into the picture? You only brought him here to come and maintain peace, according to you, because both factions were finding it difficult to have peace. And of course, along the line, they started going ultra vires and started doing things, functions, of the executive governor. And then you want to ask, are those functions legal? Of course, it is illegal. There is no way Ibas, who is a cross-riverian, who doesn't know anybody in Rivers State, will come here and begin to make appointments for an executive governor that was on suspension, that will come back and operate the government. How does Ibas actually understand the dynamics of Rivers State? How does he know the Rivers people that he appointed, and even the people that he brought into all those agencies of government, functions that are specifically functions of an elected governor? So what you are saying now is that you just go and bring in someone from somewhere, install the person for an elected governor who will bear the brunt, of either the failure or the success of his own administration. So how does that foster peace? How would you tell me, for instance, if I was a governor, that someone somewhere who is not even a Rivers man will come, appoint somebody for me to work with, and then I'll come and work with that person whom I don't know his pedigree, I don't know him from anywhere. And then you expect that I'll be okay with that. And then you say that we are moving towards peace. Of course, such kind of peace will not be sustainable, because it's practically impossible for both the local government chairmen that have come on board now and all the appointments that Ibas made to work harmoniously, with the governor, because of course their loyalty is definitely going to tilt towards the people who foist them on the people, because of course, as far as we are concerned, that was a selection and not an election. Although it's not new, it has been the practice all over the country in Nigeria. But then when you want to make a selection, at least let the selection be done by the governor who is going to work with those people that are being selected. Not that an alien from somewhere we don't even know will come here, make his own selection, and then impose it on the governor. And then you say that we are talking about peace. So as far as I am concerned, it is unfortunate that I have to say this, because of course I can't say anything contrary to what I feel each time I'm called to speak. As far as I'm concerned, the peace, that we have in Rivers State today is a piece of the graveyard, is a peace at gunpoint, and I pray that it is sustainable, because looking at it critically, the fact remains that it's going to be very fragile, except for the fact that the governor will just decide to throw in the towel when it comes back, which is something that nobody in Rivers State wants, because Rivers people actually love this governor so much. They know he means well for Rivers people, and they will do anything and everything to ensure that he succeeds. So I only pray, that somewhere along the line, Rivers people will find a balance, the governor, and the minister will find a way, to put their ego aside, because of course, right now, the state has been captured, so to speak, and has been handed over to, one particular actor in the whole of this. And so it all depends on how, he decides, the level at which, he's able to accommodate, people into this political estate that has been handed over to him.
So, all right, Mr. Solomon, I hear you when you say, quite a number of people have different perspectives. But, let's look at it from another angle, because, another view. You see, there are quite a number of reactions regarding savings, because Business Day also reported slowed economy activity, that abandoned projects, and Port Harcourt becoming progressively worse into a refused city under emergency rule. Meanwhile, the administrator claims that he has saved 5 billion naira from verification. What has that been, for the true humans and the economic cost for ordinary Rivers residents beyond the political struggle? Because if we find somebody who is trying to even save us costs, and we know that politics is very expensive in this country. We have made politics highly expensive in this country. We have to keep it real on this platform. But listening to that and hearing that, for me, I felt that that was a good one in terms of savings, because we never know what would have happened if the Governor Fubara was the one on seat. What's your take on this?
Well, Kike, one thing that bothers me so much about our politicians today in this country is that most times they feel as if Nigerians are paupers, and we are all, foolish people who don't have sense. So whenever they are given, the platform to speak, probably because they know that our laws has become ineffective, they come up and say whatever they want to say, as though they were talking to children, and because they know that there are no consequences, to openly, defecate on the faces and on the conscience and sensibility of Rivers people. That's the only reason why, statements like that will be coming up, to the extent that you even want to reference it. Let me tell you something. So what you're telling us right now is that, for instance, they bring you into an organization and then you siphon maybe 800 billion naira, and then you come up tomorrow to say that you have saved 5 billion, whereas you had confiscated, you have stolen maybe even 1 trillion naira. People should come forward and come and clap for you. And then let me even puncture that bad that is credited to the sole administrator. A man comes up to Rivers State on the pretext that he wants to come and make peace where there were political crises. And the first thing he did was to come and dissolve all existing structures that was in Rivers State, and began to install his own, selected people who can do financial dealings and businesses with him. Ibas went as far as dissolving local government councils, dissolving local government administrations, dissolving government parastatals, medical boards, educational boards, internal revenue generation boards. These are statutory boards, that were even there before the governor came. Statutory boards that had nothing to do with politics, just because he had a scheme. And then he came here. Rivers State was doing about 25 to 28 billion naira in internally generated revenue monthly. And then Ibas came here, and all of a sudden he told us that Rivers State is not generating up to 10 billion naira a month. And then who investigated him? What actually happened that resulted into that shortfall? He came here and then made about 226, billion naira that was left in the coffers, of Rivers State. And rumor has it that the first thing he did was to share that money, with his political cronies and the people who brought him to office and all of that. Up to this day, who had audited, the account with which Ibas met, who has also even investigated how much he received. Because the truth of the matter is that Rivers State was not generating 10 billion naira per month. And then you come to the civil service, you say you wanted to audit the civil service. You want to do workers verification, and then created a situation whereby you remove more than half of the people that were on the payroll under the pretext that they are ghost workers, and then you go to the public and go and declare that you have saved 5 billion. Whereas over 50% of the Rivers State civil servants up to this moment are struggling. The pictures are all over the state.
With all that you have shared thus far, I know that sharing of money and your message about auditing, who is going to audit him with all that he has done, is let's just push that aside because of the way that he came in. He was appointed because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu initially justified this emergency action, citing pipeline vandalism, like I mentioned in my intro, the security threats. Have security conditions now actually improved regarding all infrastructure protection and general public safety? Because the reason why I'm asking this question is because of the reason why it was brought in the first place. Or has there been any focus being, primarily on political management and all of that? Because I feel that we need to throw a lot of light on the reason why he came into the picture. Now that he's leaving after 6 months, do you think genuinely, that things have improved, especially when it comes to security issues in Rivers State?
Kike, I can tell you without contradiction that there were no security challenges in Rivers State. And the issue of pipeline vandalization that was cited in the broadcast suspending the governor as one of the probable reasons is also neither here nor there. I am from Ogoni, the part of Rivers State where that incident that was cited happened. And I can tell you that nothing of such, all those things were just, made up stories to have a near viable reason, to justify the illegality that was done here. And I can even tell you that it is even in the course of the absence of the governor that we even had, sparks of insecurity in Rivers State. Because when the governor was here, because people liked him and he was doing pretty well, there were no insecurities, anywhere. Everything was moving smoothly, for the state of Rivers. And then talking about all that has happened, and if the claim, by the president has been abated and all of those things, it's very funny because you don't create a situation to justify your action, and then at the end of the day, you begin to ask if that situation actually existed or that situation has been solved, when, of course, that none of such ever existed. So Rivers people saw all the game, they saw all the shenanigans, and then never played into their hands, because of course what they were expecting was that Rivers people will go up in arms, and then they will use it as a reason to justify the state of emergency. In fact, at some point we even learned that they were even working so hard to try to see how they can get an extension to it, for which Rivers people never gave them any reason to succeed. So right now, the best consideration would be, will there be peace now with all that has happened? Of course, like I said, today in Rivers State, that we are, the way we are, we have peace in Rivers State, can be attributed to the governor of Rivers State, who was suspended. and whether we are also going to be in peace in the coming days and months will also be dependent on the disposition of the governor, because I can tell you for free that if Governor Siminalayi Fubara had said no, that he rejects, that suspension, I tell you, Kike, without, any contradiction, Rivers State would have gone up in flames, because I tell you, there is no way, there is no amount of security, there is no amount of federal might that would have been able, to push away Rivers people from the government house if they had said they would not allow that action to happen. But the governor persuaded his supporters, persuaded Rivers people, told Rivers people that, Rivers State is bigger than his own, personal interest. Rivers State is more important than any political consideration. And for that, he encouraged everybody to just, lie low and allow the people who wanted to capture the state to do with the state what they pleased. So if Rivers State will be in peace after the lifting of this emergency, it will also going to be dependent on him, because like I said, the tractors and traducers of
I think you've answered my question. But do not forget to remain.
There is something I want to add.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Right now, as we speak, they had created booby traps, they had created shackles, they had created, encumbrances that will make governing Rivers State very difficult, for the governor when he comes back.
All right, we'll elaborate on that thought. Please don't forget it. Let's go on a quick break to get a word from my sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation, we have been discussing Rivers State at the close of 6 months under federal emergency rule, and of course with all that have transpired thus far with Admiral Ibok, the sole administrator, has submitted his report and overseeing local government elections with all that have transpired thus far when it comes to the controversy that remains over constitutionality and political fallout. But my real talk today is with my guest, Mr. Solomon Lenu, who has been unpacking whether this intervention has truly been something that has brought peace to the country, or is something that, it has brought a lot of divide, whether we like it or not. And with all the submission thus far, we can tell where the, the ambience or the state of the country is at the moment. But, again, for those who would like to be part of this conversation, remember that you can call in on the studios, on the number showing on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming live from Facebook, both on Real Talk with Kike platform and on Silverbird platform. Mr. Solomon, all that you have shared thus far, I know that you are trying to put a thought process out there regarding, what the situation is at the moment. I would like you to elaborate on that, because during this period of democratic suspension, some people felt that, it was necessary for Fubara to just take a step back. I like the fact that you have emphasized that if not for the fact that he had to reach out to people for peace to reign, so those who want to capture the state can actually go ahead and see some of the challenges that he has faced or is facing. But I must ask you, with all that you have shared regarding that, what pressure or how do you think that both the state and the federal government will be able to work hand in hand to make sure that that peace, that authority that we are expecting in terms of what the people want from the governor in terms of operation of the administration will come to play? How do you think that there can be uniformity or synergy between both the state and the federal government?
Well, to answer your question, I would like to lay a background to my position before I go on with that. The truth of the matter is that the only reason why the president, gave, backing to all that happened here through the minister and all of the people who orchestrated it is because of the consideration for the re-election, his re-election in 2027. And maybe he may not know, and let this be an opportunity for him to know. If his re-election bid for 2027 was the main consideration to had given backing to all the things that happened here, believing that some people somewhere, if they are in control, can give him unassailable access to the votes of Rivers people. I think if that was the consideration, or if that was, the narrative that was sold to him, I think they lied to him. The truth remains that if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually wants Rivers people to support his re-election bid, the only pathway to getting the support of Rivers people is through the Governor Simini Alaye Fubara, who Rivers people had come to love beyond every measure today. So if there will be any form of synergy or harmony between the state government and the federal government, then there shouldn't be any go-between acting, as a middleman between the governor of Rivers State and the president and the federal government. Because the truth remains that majority of those things, the narratives or all the semantics and all the, braggadocious disposition that has been put out, to impress the president that they are in charge and all of those things are all founded on lies. And, we wouldn't want to go into that, but there are empirical, facts and evidence to show that when the time comes, even those promises that had been made to the president that made him to give this backing that he had given to, all the things that happened here in Rivers State can never be achieved. So to answer your question directly, for there to be harmony and synergy, between the state government and the federal government, the governor had to be allowed to perform his functions as the governor. And I had also submitted that the first thing that the governor would do when he comes back, next tomorrow or whatever date, that had been fixed for his return, first thing he would do, is to dissolve the entire, government structure that has been put in place, arbitrarily by IBAS, save for the local government, councils, because of course, they came under the pretext of an election, and he's not an arbitrary person. I will not also ask him to act arbitrarily, but every other appointments that were done by the sole administrator has to be dissolved immediately, and the governor will have to appoint his own people that he can work with to ensure that he delivers on the mandate that was given to him by Rivers people. And the federal government has to understand that we are practicing true federalism, where power rotates across the tiers of government across the states. So no arm of government, no tier of government should, meddle into the activities and functions of another tier or another arm of government. That way,
all right,
there can be peace.
All right.
And of course, that is what we want. Let there be peace, because Rivers State is a very critical state to the nation Nigeria, both economically, politically, and otherwise. And Rivers State cannot be in turmoil and expect Nigeria to move forward.
All right, many thanks, many thanks. I hope that there will be peace. This will be my last questions to you. I have double barrel questions for you based on all that you have shared thus far, because with Ibok-Ete presenting his own transition reports, I must ask you, what mechanism should exist to investigate his administration expenditures and decisions? Because you have asked earlier saying that, who is actually going to audit him? I wish you could actually, put your thought process out there on how you want that to be done. Should Governor Fubara initiate a probe, and with all that he has done within the 6 months, how are we even sure that, that will not be swept under the carpet? And how might this also affect political stability if you are talking about peace? Because sometimes torchlighting certain things again is going to bring unnecessary tension in the state. This is me just keeping it real as much as I can. And that's my first question to you. My second question to you is looking beyond this September 18. Solomon, what lasting impact might this 6-month experiment with the sole administrator have on federal-state relations in terms of the political culture in Rivers State and the precedent for using emergency powers against political opponents across Nigeria? I would like you to quickly throw your submission on these two questions swiftly, please, so that we can wrap up the show.
Yeah, first, I would, if I'm to advise the governor, I would not advise him to, toe the path of perdition in trying to want to investigate the activities of financial, misconduct of Rear Admiral Ibok-Ete. Of course, it's a clear knowledge to every Nigerian that they were here for two purposes: to capture governance structure and then, to take over the economic resources of Rivers State, which they have done. And like Ibok-Ete said, that he has delivered on the mandate for which he was given. I think that's the honest truth that is coming from the man. He has delivered on the mandate. He has taken all the monies. He has taken back the structure of governance from the elected governor, handed it over to whoever they wanted. So for that, they had succeeded. So I would not advise the governor to toe that path, because come to think of it, the judiciary that you can use in making those probes, or at the end of the probe, what are you going to do with it? Normally, when you embark on a probe, you present your findings, and then the judicial panel will be set up, and then punishment will be meted, and the judiciary, will declare the person guilty and all of that. But which judiciary is going to look at, that matter, when even the case that was brought by the 11 governors of the PDP, as it were, then, up to this moment, a matter of such importance, is a matter of, constitutional, existential threat, has not been heard till today, because one big man is involved. So which court or who is going to do what to who as regards the misappropriation or otherwise of the resources of Rivers State for the time that Ibas was here? Is it not the people who sent him here who also superintends, the judiciary and every other arms of government today? So for me, going on that path will be wasting, viable time and scarce resources that would have been put into, proper use to ameliorate, the challenges that has been posed on Rivers State for these 6 months of non-governance in Rivers State. So I would not advise him, to go that path. And on the part of Nigeria, how we can, wriggle ourselves out of this constitutional quagmire that this action of the last 6 months has thrown us into. The truth remains that every people deserve a government that they have. This issue, today, this abrasive use of power, this misapplication of federal might and all of those things, as we have seen today, did not just start today. Nigerians had always been quiet, very complacent. At some point, they've always taken sides, with their own tribesmen, with their own brothers, their own relatives. The moment you understand the actor who is carrying out those illegality are related to them. We've always been silent, and that is the same thing that we are doing today. So there's no magic or no miracle that is going to happen as a result of this thing that has happened in Rivers State. At the worst case scenario, a dangerous precedent has been set that definitely, will return back in the future. Of course, it was President Olusegun Obasanjo who even started this in Plateau State against Governor Joshua Dariye. And then at that time, the judiciary could not even stand up to say no or stamp out that illegality. That's the reason why President Ahmed Bola Tinubu also found the courage, to also try to repeat the same thing. And he did it and went far and beyond what Obasanjo did. So tomorrow when another person comes, they will even add an extra to what has happened here today. And then that situation or that circumstance will continue. So those are the challenges that we have. And to be honest, it's not going to change anything. I was listening to Ruben Abati on Arise News, and one of his guests, alluded to the fact that he was so surprised that no proper protest was even carried out in Rivers State, despite the very, very vexatious action that was taken here. And that's to tell you how Nigerians have been beaten to submission, because, of course, when you try it, of course, they murder you like they did in October 2020 during the NSAS, protests and all of that. So we are in a very precarious situation that will require a concerted effort and social re-engineering for us to get out of. So that is what it is, Kike.
For all your submission thus far, we really wish River State genuine peace, not a graveyard peace with all that is going on right now. On this note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show. But again, I want to say to my resourceful guest, Mr. Solomon Lenu, many thanks for creating time to do this with me and lending your voice on issues, you know, that affect us all, because injustice to one is injustice to all. On this note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show. Till I come your way next week, remember to catch me live no, be kind to one another. I like work too much. Guys, can you see that I like work? You know, be kind to one another and stay safe, please. Bye now.